The entire global economy is currently suspended by a thread exactly 21 miles wide. You look at the stock market hitting record highs and see resilience, but history sees a trap. We are witnessing the deceptive calm before a financial cardiac arrest. Imagine checking your net worth at 9 a.m. and feeling secure, then watching the mathematical logic of the energy sector dissolve by noon. This is not unprecedented. It is a script we have acted out before. Iran's silence following the combined U.S.-Israeli strikes is not submission, it is the deep breath before the plunge. We are moving from a tactical skirmish to a systemic strangulation, and the timeline for the next great cyclical collapse has just accelerated. That 21-mile thread isn't a poetic metaphor. It is the Strait of Hormuz, and it is the only thing keeping the global energy grid from flatlining. Right now, you look at the S&P 500 shattering records and see a booming economy. I look at it and see a financial cardiac arrest waiting to happen. The disconnect between stock valuations and geopolitical reality has never been wider. It is a manufactured calm, a psychological trap where we mistake the lack of immediate explosions for safety. Everyone thought they were permanently safe. However, everything changed when the variables shifted from potential threats to kinetic realities. The speed of modern collapse is not measured in months. It happens between your morning coffee and your lunch break. You feel secure at 9 a.m., checking a portfolio that feels invincible. By noon, the mathematical foundation of the energy sector dissolves, and that wealth evaporates because a single choke point was squeezed. We aren't watching a random war. We are watching a regime backed into a corner where moderation is no longer a survival strategy. As an analyst from the International Institute for Strategic Studies warned, when a regime believes it faces an existential threat, the incentive to hold back vanishes. Tehran is not going to fight the U.S. Navy in a fair open-water duel. They are going to activate a script of asymmetric strangulation. We are talking about fast attack boats, semi-submersibles, and naval mines designed specifically to turn that 21-mile channel into a kill zone. They don't even need to close it entirely. A mere 20% reduction in flow sends crude oil screaming past $100 a barrel and shatters the illusion of market stability instantly. This is the script we are ignoring. But if you're hunting for a face to pin this nightmare on, some general in a bunker or a politician in DAC, you're missing the point. The true architect of Phase 2 is a person. It's a broken equation. We call it the deterrence calculus. For 40 years, the logic was simple. Iran threatens the Strait, the U.S. threatens the regime, and both sides stay just sane enough to keep the lights on. The recent strikes didn't fix that, they detonated it. Washington and Tel Aviv assumed pain would force compliance. But they forgot the golden rule of survival that an analyst from the International Institute for Strategic Studies flagged right before the attack. If you have a regime that thinks it's about to go down, why would you hold back? That is the villain. We are interpreting Iran's current silence as submission. We think they're humiliated. Wrong. Silence is what happens when you remove the incentive to moderate. If the IRGC believes their survival probability has dropped to zero, then burning down the global energy market stops being a threat and starts being a rational strategy. It becomes their only card. We have backed a nation of 88 million people, a population the size of Germany, armed with the region's largest missile arsenal, into a corner where chaos is the only safety they have left. Closing the strait isn't a suicide mission anymore. Under this new calculus, it's the only way they force the world to pause the execution. We convince ourselves this is unprecedented. It's not. We are watching the third repetition of a specific historical cycle, only this time, the explosives are bigger. Go back to 1956, the Suez Crisis. When that choke point snapped shut, it wasn't a red line on a Bloomberg terminal. It was frozen winters across Europe. It was the physical reality of energy dependency slamming into the arrogance of foreign policy. That was lesson one. You can't heat a home with diplomatic leverage. Then, 1973, the embargo. Ask yourself the hard question. Why were the central planners blindsided? Why did they think their GDP was a shield? Because the West is addicted to false security. They assumed military dominance granted economic immunity. They were wrong. The pumps ran dry, and the global economy didn't just stumble, it suffered a stroke. But hold on, because the script gets worse. The logic used to be the 1980s tanker war, tit-for-tat harassment. That is over. Look at the hard evidence from February 17th. The IRGC conducted live-fire naval exercises in the Strait, but look closer at the hardware. They aren't just using speedboats. They are deploying semi-submersible craft designed for asymmetric warfare. These vessels sit below the waterline, invisible to standard radar, ready to gut a supertanker from the keel up. Even a partial disruption, blocking just 20% of flow, sends crude rocketing past $100. But with these semi-submersibles, Iran isn't preparing for a disruption. They are rehearsing a cardiac arrest of the global supply chain. The history is repeating. But the weapon is no longer a political lever. It's a guillotine. The blade drops because we refuse to look at the map. 3 times history warned us about choke points. 3 times we ignored the geography, betting that precise airstrikes could bypass basic physics. We lost that bet. Here is the verdict. The rules of engagement have dissolved. If the regime in Tehran survives these strikes, humiliated but standing, their calculus shifts permanently. As one strategist bluntly asked before the dust settled, if you have a regime that thinks it's about to go down, why would you hold back? They won't. The IRGC is moving to maximal escalation. That means the fast attack boats and live fire exercises we saw on February 17th weren't theater. They were target practice. We know that blocking just 30% of the strait sends oil past $100. But a full closure enters territory no algorithm has ever tested. We are staring at a power vacuum in a nation of 88 million people, creating a blast radius that makes the Iraq 2003 instability look like a controlled demolition. But the missiles are just the distraction. The real devastation happens silently, in the markets. There is a specific economic mechanism that is about to snap, an exact replay of a crisis from 50 years ago. To understand why your cost of living is about to double, you have to understand the 1973 shock. I broke down the blueprint of that crash in this video right here. It's the only way to see what happens next week. Watch it now. 3 times history has proven that regional wars and energy hubs don't stay regional, they reset the global economy. And 3 times, the central planners failed to see it coming. The thesis is clear. The kinetic strikes between Iran and Israel are merely the trigger. The real explosion will be in the cost of your survival. So the question you must answer today is, Tyant, is the war coming? It is. What happens to my family's future when the dollar loses its tie to oil tomorrow? We are tracking the collapse in real time, decoding the signals the mainstream media ignores. If you want to be prepared for the financial storm that is making landfall, you need to click that subscribe button right now.